Going to a live event is an investment. We have to pay for our ticket, flight, accommodation, and so on. On one hand, we could get a lot of value, learning from experts, networking with other sellers. But on the other hand, it could also be a huge waste of time. I started doing research because I wanted to figure out which of these events would be worth my time. And I realized that it is quite overwhelming. There are literally dozens of events happening all around the world. So I asked my friend Augustas to help me figure this out. And I'd like to share our discussion with you. So let's dive in. Okay, today we are going to talk about live events, and since I'm new to this, I invited an expert to help me learn more. So I would like to welcome Augustas from Orange Click, and most people probably already know you, but if not, could you please share a brief introduction?
No, thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you, especially that you are also from Europe creating content for Amazon sellers. I'm also from Europe, from the East, from Lithuania. I live in Portugal, and for the last 7 years, I jumped in 7 years ago by doing virtual summits for Amazon sellers. Later, I transformed to physical events, and now with the team, we're also doing physical events. We do YouTube videos, just like you, and basically we're content creators and a neutral platform as an Orange Click. So, of course, I'm representing Orange Click, and we are kind of a neutral platform for service providers to showcase what they do and their knowledge, and also for Amazon sellers to learn from our experts, which we bring. So we are kind of like an educational platform, let's say.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I have a few questions about events because I believe I already mentioned this, but I started selling on Amazon around 6 years ago, but I attended my first live event this year, which is a little embarrassing, but I was always like isolating myself and I didn't realize what's out there. And once I started doing a research, looking at all of these events, I realized there are so many events for Amazon sellers. So if I decided I want to go to more events, how should I choose? Should I focus on like speakers or location or size of the event?
So first of all, you need to know where to search. Just like this on the internet, it's hard to find Amazon-related events.
Yeah.
And it was a huge problem like 5 years ago. That's why I personally started a website, amzsummits.com, where we put, until now, for the last 5-6 years, events which are happening mostly in North America and Europe. So this is a good resource to start kind of choosing where you want to go. And then there are, of course, a lot of different things when you want to choose. First, you look at your budget. Maybe you look at your wish to travel and maybe your goals. Some people want just to learn. Some people really go to events because they know the power of networking. And I myself, I would say I didn't attend many events organized by others, but with my team, we organized about 10 virtual summits and about 10 physical events. So I would say that those who are just starting out to go to events, they look at the speakers and look what content they will learn about. But I think big part in the physical events are networking. So maybe in the dinner or in the lunch time you talk with another Amazon seller and you get this nugget which pays off your trip. And very often the speakers are maybe half of them you have seen online. So I don't say that they're always presenting like all content, but it happens that, you just listen to the speaker, and you don't learn something new just because the person is informing you about the same things from different perspective. So if your goal is kind of to experience for the first time, for example, event, so I would choose maybe the one which is happening closest to you so that you don't need to invest a lot. The events we do are always international. So a lot of attendees, almost probably sometimes like almost 100% of attendees are coming from different countries. In that case, you have to invest accommodation and travel expenses adding up. So yeah, it's like, I don't know where to start, but if you want to find a low budget event, start with the free meetups. There is a website, meetup.com. Find a community maybe which is happening, which is which is having meetups regularly once a month, and go there, start networking there with people. You will see what you will get, and then maybe go to try cheap events, which maybe cost like $30-$60. You will see that there are a lot of beginner type of sellers coming, but if you really want to go like next level very quickly, especially if you are like still beginner or you are struggling, I would recommend that you need to invest like really hundreds in the ticket, and then travel maybe to a different location, different country. In North America, maybe it's difficult to go to different country, but maybe I don't know much about North American or USA culture, but in Europe, I would recommend Amazon sellers to go to a neighboring country to an event just to meet different cultures and different mindsets. I myself traveled like almost 70 countries, and I know the power of meeting different cultures. You get different perspective. I remember when I went to China, I was explaining what I felt in China, because they look at the world completely different. So let's say if we have a round table on the ground, I would say it's a round, but Chinese would say it's an ellipse, and he would be right, because if you look from the side, you see ellipse. So I was describing how, let's say, Chinese see the world, like they see different perspective, and they are right what they're saying. But so I think it's important to, if you don't have a big budget, to experience from a cheaper or small gatherings, and then if you want to go next level very quickly, I think it's worth to go far away. Like you went from Czech Republic to South Africa, and I'm sure you invested like almost $2,000 in the whole trip, or $1,500. So, and you said you probably got lots of value from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the problem was that I had actually no idea that there are events happening in Europe. As I said, I was not really active in space, so I just didn't know. And then I realized that one of the biggest events in Europe is actually happening in Prague. Like it's almost right across the street from my apartment. So it's like, it's very close. So, but luckily we got in touch, and now I actually see that there are so many events across Europe. So can you tell me more about the events you are organizing in Europe, and you see what's happening? Because to be honest, for example, in Czech Republic, I don't think that there are that many Amazon sellers, so I simply assumed that there will be no events. But as you said, I did a brief research and looked at it, and there are just so many as well in Europe.
So when I lived in Germany 5-6 years ago, when I started mzsummits.com project, I also wanted to visit events. I was living in Germany already second year in this industry, and I wanted really to meet people I interview and Amazon sellers, but I started to, search online, and I don't know where to go, how to find these events. So in Europe, the first problem is that every country lives in their own juice, their own bubble. So you are from Czech Republic, but I would not be surprised if you don't hear much about events happening in Slovakia or meetups, just because, Slovakians are in their own circle, bubble. In the last... So basically, that was the reason why we started European Seller Conference in Prague, which was in 2019. And the idea of this event was to create one central event for Amazon sellers in Europe to gather in a central European location, easy to access by flights. And at that time, when we started this event, and even today, there are not so many like our European Seller Conference event, which would be very international and in English. So you get events in UK, pretty good events, but probably majority of the attendees are based in UK, maybe like more than half. Of course, there are a lot of, for people, it's kind of comfortable to fly to UK, maybe because they speak English, it's comfortable to fly there to the event. But if event would be happening in Spain, and maybe a German guy who doesn't speak Spanish, he might be hesitating to go, not only because of other reasons, but because of cultural difference. Maybe the guy would be like afraid that he would not be able to communicate in the airport. He maybe never flew so far away.
Yeah.
So you have to break a lot of mental points as an organizer to attract people to another country. So it's pretty risky to do English speaking event in, let's say, in a country which is not native English speaker. So that's why there are not so many events. But to name a few, maybe besides European Seller Conference, we organize, which I hope is will become one of the most important for sellers. There is Danny Macmillan's Seller Sessions. He's organizing in May, usually in UK. There are a lot of events in Germany. So if you speak German, check their market and their industry or their kind of what's happening there. We have some events on AMZ Summits as well. And besides that, it's very hard. Sometimes events pop up and maybe it's a good event. It happens for one time and organizer stops organizing just because it's difficult to maintain, to kind of attract people to an international event in a random location. And besides that, still, I would recommend to search meetup groups and start there. Maybe you can get information about upcoming events in a neighboring country in your local meetup as well. But talking about European events, there are not so many English-speaking international events. And if something is happening in the local community, like in Romania, maybe there might be event of 200, 300 people. But again, it's you need to have a big radar to get information about this. So,
yeah. And are these sellers that are coming to the European events, whether it's the European Seller Conference or the events in Spain or UK, are these sellers also selling in the US, or do you mostly see that they are just selling in Europe and not really selling in the US marketplace?
Yeah, when we talked to people attending our events, I noticed a lot of German speakers or German people, they sell mostly in Europe. And I have impression that a lot of European sellers are focusing on European marketplace, and some of course, they have kind of as a second or additional channel US marketplace. Yeah. Not so many are selling only in US and then planning to come to Europe. But I was kind of surprised a little bit to feel that people are focusing on European marketplace when North Americans, they would not even step into Europe because why to add 10% of profit when they can just focus on US?
And are there people coming from the US to these European events as well, or is it just like mostly people from Europe?
Yes, of course, especially when there are events in UK. So, UK, US, it's English language. So it's very comfortable mentally to travel for US people. Easy flights, cheap flights. When something is happening international in Europe, for example, in Prague event, out of maybe 180 people, we had 15 from US. But it included maybe like 4 or 5 US speakers. So US speakers are eager to speak in European events because they want to get access to this kind of different type of community. Yeah. And once we organized the event in my home country in Lithuania, it was English speaking event. And I was surprised also seeing people buying from US tickets to our events and coming. And actually for North Americans, I would recommend a lot to go to European events, at least to UK. UK is already a little bit different than US. And in UK, you will meet other nationalities in the events, maybe Romanians living in UK, and Germans, French people. And it will open up a little bit your mind to see what strategies you can implement in a European way. Yeah.
I see a lot of US sellers being intimidated by Europe and selling in Europe, especially because of VAT, right? So I can imagine that people coming from the US to these conferences in Europe can get a lot of value from European sellers, right? If they network, because they could help them explain how these marketplaces work. And I know when we were expanding with our business from the US to UK and then to Europe, it helped me a lot that I was actually in Europe, so I already understood how VAT works, and it was quite easy to actually set up the expansion. So
So yeah, talking about, let's say, VAT, maybe Amazon seller from Europe would not help too much. Maybe just will show the path, but basically it's such a complex thing that you need a service provider. And of course, in Europe, service providers for VAT taxes are probably the best than maybe signing up with someone in US. And obviously US company might outsource their VAT compliance service to somebody in Europe. So a good tip is for North Americans to come to Europe to connect to service providers in person who are working with European marketplaces. So yeah, events is not only networking and learning, but also finding out what kind of services exist there, because services come as sponsors, services come as attendees as well. And even we had 2 months ago event in Lisbon, and some European seller said, "Oh, I was in that event." Yeah, I think they mentioned our event, and we had like 10 sponsors, and the guy said, "Well, I didn't know that such service even exists, and now I'm using them." So it's sponsors. Maybe it's how to say, they're promoting themselves, but sometimes you find out something you don't even know that exists.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my questions, I also wanted to know, like, how to really get the most out of an event. Because when I was in Cape Town, I've learned so much and I met a lot of people, and it was really packed in 2 days, all the information, all the interactions. And obviously for sellers, this is an investment, right? As you said, they have to buy the ticket, they have to travel. So how to get the most out of the event? I personally, what I did, I sat down with a journal after the event and wrote down just three things I want to implement and list of people I want to stay in touch with, right? Because if you meet like 50 people, 20 people, it may be hard to stay in touch with them. So what would you recommend to really get the most out of an event?
So what I feel that the most you get when you upgrade to the VIP tickets, to the tickets which give you access to other people who are investing much more than regular attendees. That means you usually get access to speakers. Speakers maybe not always like they're good speaker, but because they're speaking and have a lot of big network, they can give you contacts. They have a lot of insider information which they don't share on the stage. But when you sit at the dinners, or at least upgrade to the VIP dinner or something if possible, even if it costs $200 or $300, it will be really worth, because you will get like a possibility to talk to others. And if you're, of course, coming as a regular attendee, you don't want to invest to VP, I think it's important to make notes like you did, and very much important to digitalize your notes if you're doing on the paper, to go home, or even in the same, when the day finishes of the event, if you still have energy, sit down at the laptop and type it in, maybe even send to your VA or your partner or other team members to see what you shared, because 1 week later you will forget a lot of details. You will cool down, the energy will go down, and then later it will be difficult to summarize all these things. Or if you don't have time to type in, at least record voice messages into your phone, which you can later transcribe and listen. So these would be my tips to summarize kind of what you are learning, to make notes on the spot. And in terms of like what you meet, whom you meet, what I have seen others are doing, you meet a lot of people in the event. Maybe like you will talk 20, 30, and literally you will forget their faces, because so what I saw some other people doing is that they take maybe a business card and they take a picture together. So you will, remember later. You will, after 2 months, you will review the picture and you will remember the face, and you will remember with the face what you talked about, in what location, and you will recall a lot of information. So it's important to take like kind of selfies together with maybe a business card or some kind of other name. If you take a selfie without a name, you will forget again who was this person.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. This is super helpful, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person in Prague, because I'm really honored that I was invited to speak there, and it means a lot to me, since like it's a really big event, and Also, it's in Prague, right? So I'm really happy that I can just get there and show people around Prague, and like, yeah, I'm really, really excited about it.
And what's important to note about the Euro Micellar conference in Prague is that we hope to get 200 people. At the moment, we have over 100. We still have like almost 2 months left, I think, or a bit less. And out of those 200 people, I expect maximum 10 people from Czech Republic. So about 95% are coming or investing into their travels and accommodation from outside. And probably there will be about 40 different nationalities represented.
Oh, nice.
So you will have a possibility to, talk to Eastern Europeans, to North Americans. Maybe there will be some people flying from Asia. And it's a big opportunity to meet really international kind of community. And as I said, I traveled a lot in the past. And I love this international gatherings because you learn so much and you start to see the world in different way.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm really looking forward to it. And if you guys decide to come to Prague, I will meet you there in person as well. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So yes, it is official. I will be speaking at the European Seller Conference in Prague. It is a great honor and also a personal challenge to be speaking in front of 200 people. So if you plan to come, I would be happy to meet you in person, and we can also grab a beer after the conference and I could show you around in Prague because I live here. So I will see you soon. Bye.